All right, y'all. Y'all saw the thumbnail. Today we're doing pulled pork two different ways. I'm going to cook one basically where it's just going to be naked. I'm not going to wrap it. I'm not going to do anything. Probably wrap it at the end when it's time to rest. But then the other, I'm going to treat it how I usually do, where I'm going to, get it past the stall, make sure that my bark is set and I'm rendering good fat. Then I'm going to wrap it in foil. This is how we're going to start. We have the beaver trapper from Spiceology. We're going to hit it with a good layer of that. But before we do that, I do like to get a good blend of 2 parts pepper, table pepper to 1 part kosher salt. The pepper is going to build up the bark. The salt is going to allow us to have that flavor to carry through. This is going to round out the flavor profile. Pulled pork is pretty much the cut that I really started on. When I started cooking, I lived up in Pennsylvania, but I was fresh out of North Carolina. And so I had seen how they treated pulled pork down there. I really wanted to do it. And that's really how I cut my teeth. I was like, cooking pulled pork, burning it, it'll be nasty, over spiced, things like that. But at the end of the day, the cut was so forgiving that it was forgiving and cheap. And so it allowed me to just experiment. So I think for today, it's only right that I went back to my roots, started off with pulled pork. We want to do it 2 ways, like I said, but it's going to be Carolina style with the sauce ultimately. So stay tuned. Okay, y'all, out to the pit we go. The Workhorse 1975. We about to get this thing fired up. I got a charcoal chimney. I have some butcher paper from a previous brisket cook that's loaded in beef tallow that I'm going to use. That's really going to help get the flame started. Loading in some lump charcoal, and then I'm going to hit it with my blowtorch just to get things nice and crispy up in that charcoal chimney right there, and establish my coal bed. That's kind of how I laid it out into a little channel. And now I'm going in with some pear wood. I'm going in with some good, nice, heavy pear splits, getting my fire situated. That's going to be my Lincoln log pattern, and that's what's going to help establish my early part of my coal bed. I got 2 pork butts right there. So I picked these up from my local Walmart. One is around 10 pounds. One is a little bit less than 9 pounds, but I think it's like $25 for one, and then close to $22 for the other one. So it's an extremely affordable cut of meat. Now we're just going to go ahead and dig into these and start getting them open now. The thing about pork butts is, even if you mess one up, you're out 20 something dollars as opposed to a brisket that's close to $60 or $70. So if you really want to start learning how to use your cooker and learning fire management, I think pork butts are the way to go. That gives you a nice long cook for you to experiment with your cooker. But then also kind of at the end of the day, you end up with something tasty to eat. So what I did there, I went with the salt and pepper base. I went down with the salt and pepper first on both of those pork butts. And then I'm coming over the top with some beaver trapper. With the salt and pepper base, that pepper is really going to give you a nice bark. When you think about a brisket, you get that nice dark color. And that's mainly contributed from the pepper, those big granules of pepper kind of catching smoke. So we're going to look to replicate that a bit here. But then we're also adding extra layers with that beaver trapper. So I'm going to hit all the sides, starting the fat cap down, making sure I get the meat nice and seasoned, including the sides. Pat it in. I'm going to let that sit for a quick couple of minutes, and then I'm going to give it a flip so I can get my fat cap seasoned up. So now I get my flip going, and I'm going to kind of rub the sides a bit. You can see my fat cap. I got a couple of gouges in them, but I'm not really worried about that. I think there's going to be enough intramuscular fat and then enough fat that's left over on that fat cap for us to have like a really nice bark and enough juiciness. Salt and pepper again, beaver trapper again, patting in that spices and then kind of letting them sit. While those are sitting, while those are chilling, I'm coming out to the pit. I got a nice smoky environment going on. That's exactly what I want. That blade bone, that's the side I'm going to face towards the firebox. So when you're using an offset cooker,
And if you have a lot of convection, or if you have any type of cooker that allows you to, you want to put the blade bone towards the heat source. The blade bone is going to be able to absorb a lot more of the heat, as opposed to the money muscle, which is more of a delicate piece. So I want the brunt of the heat, the brunt of that force from the flame and the firebox to hit that blade bone and kind of tenderize the meat on that side, and allow the money muscle to kind of come up a little bit more slowly in a more calm environment. I'm not worried about clean smoke right now. I want these first 4 hours or so to be really smoky, kind of layering that flavor. Looking at the 75, that 1975 is looking beautiful. Wells are looking amazing. I got some splits preheating. And, I can run with my fire door open, just cracked a bit. This is what the pork butts are looking like after about 6 hours. So I'm probing them. Now they're looking like they're pretty good right now, but as you can see, the probe is showing only 160. That means these are about to hit the stall right now. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're going to go ahead and kind of push through that stall, but the bark is looking beautiful. I'm pressing down on it. It's not feeling rubbery and it's not springing back. When I'm pressing down, it kind of wants to give already, which lets me know that I'm rendering the fat really nicely on these, and I'm very happy with how the fat render is going so far.
What's going on, y'all? We're back. It's 10:44 p.m. So we're close to about 11 hours on the cooker right now. And so let me show you what 11 hours on an offset looks like for this pork butt. Now, remind you, this is the one that's going to get wrapped up. The other one, I ran out of daylight, y'all. It's super dark outside. So we're just going to look at what we got right here for this one.
Okay, after about 11 hours in, this is the pork butt that we're actually going to go wrap. And so I'm kind of feeling around right now, feeling the bark. That bark is very crunchy. I picked up a blade bone right there. I don't know if you could tell, but that's like a telltale sign if it's done or not. When I picked up the blade bone, it was nowhere near ready to release. So that's letting me know that, we still got some time on it, which is fine. That's what I expected it. That's what I expected to be. And so looking at it, like I said, the bark is nice and set. It's feeling nice and crusty. I'm going to get some aluminum foil, some heavy duty aluminum foil. Make sure it's the members mark, y'all. Don't play around, man. Shout out to my man, Greg. We're going down with 2 layers of the heavy duty aluminum foil. 2 layers because, these pieces of foil can puncture. When you're cooking barbecue, you can have some sharp edges. If they puncture and they have a hole, then you can have your, that hard-earned juices and things you work for leak out. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to hit it with some more of that beaver trapper, kind of get that, make sure I'm solidifying that flavor in, and then we're just going to start wrapping. So I'm going to be real intentional about making sure when I wrap, I want to make sure that my finishing state is fat cap up. And what that does, that allows that meat side to kind of braise in the juices that collect while maintaining the integrity of that fat cap on the top. We work really hard to render fat. We work really hard to build that fat cap and build that bark on the top. We don't want to compromise that in the 11th hour and then wrap with your fat side down. That's like a rookie move, y'all. So avoid that at all costs. So second layer going down, I'm wrapping it, getting the edges nice and crisp. You want to wrap it nice and tight so that it doesn't steam. You want it to, braise in the heat, but not steam. And then, to finish it off, I'm going to tuck these edges up on the sides here, and it's going to look like, almost like a Chipotle burrito, a super large Chipotle burrito. It's going to be super compact, nice and firm. I'm checking the bottom to make sure I didn't get any punctures on it. It looks good, and now it's ready to go back on the pit.
So I have these pork butts resting in the oven. They came off. I put them in the oven on a warm setting. My warm setting will hold probably around 100 50 to 180 degrees or something like that. So the one in the butcher paper right there, that's the one that went unwrapped all the way the whole time up to about 200 degrees. And then the one in the foil, that's the one I wrapped after it got out the stall, probably around like 180. That also came up to about 200 degrees. So I want to let these chill out some more while we get ready to make our sauce.
Carolina pulled pork inspired sauce. Don't come at me in the comments, y'all. This isn't a true Carolina style. I know how y'all get down there. This is inspired. This is going to be my take on it. This is what I love. So I'm chopping up like half an onion first, and then I'm going to follow that up, with the full lemon. I'm going to dice that up, mise en place, make sure I got everything in place before I start cooking. I'm firing up my desktop cooker, my countertop cooker, the Iwatani. I'm going in with some butter, and then I'm going to just drop in those onions that I sliced up earlier. Give those a nice little mix, get the butter incorporated all into the onions, and then I'm going to hit them with a little red pepper flake. What I did prior to the red pepper flake, I did actually hit it with a little seasoned salt, so I can kind of get some flavor down in those onions. Hit it with the red pepper flake, and then I'm coming in with some brown sugar, because for the Carolina sauce, you do want to balance out the spiciness, the heat with a little bit of sweet. So that brown sugar is going to play the sweet role for us today. Mix all of that in, get kind of those juices and the oils incorporated, and then I'm going to go in with the star of the show, which is cider vinegar. And I'm going pretty heavy with that. This is a vinegar-based sauce after all. Going in with the lemons, throw those in, and then little brewski. Pouring in some beer. I'm not going to pour the whole thing. What type of person would I be? I'm not a savage. I'm going to save some so I can have some to sip while I'm cooking the rest of the sauce. So we're going to give that a stir. And then I'm coming in with some beaver trapper just to make sure we keep that same flavor profile in, stirring it up, get everything nice and incorporated. And, it's looking pretty good right now, but it needs a simmer. It needs some time to, kind of let everything do its thing. And as it simmers, you can see, look at that color change as things kind of condense. The lemons kind of gave everything it had. All the oils from the spices are releasing, and that's looking beautiful to me. So I'm going to give it a quick taste test just to make sure I'm not missing anything. And I'm not. It's what I expected. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling pork now. So this is the foil wrap pulled pork. Excuse me. This is the foil wrap pork butt. This is a smaller one, the smaller of the two. And so I'm just going to get it all out of the foil. As you can see, we have some residual, juices and things like that left over. Pulling the blade bone, that blade pulled really clean. Meat just falling off. And then we're going to start pulling. Now, traditionally, some places in Carolina, they like to do the chop. Some places like the pulled pork. I like the pull method myself personally. I just like the texture. The chop, to me, gets a little bit too fine, and it almost, is a little too small. But the pull gives you nice strands. And as I'm pulling it apart, look at the smoke ring on that. The smoke ring is looking absolutely phenomenal. The meat, is feeling nice and tender. Even though it doesn't look crazy juicy right now, the juices were, it was all there. I'm just kind of tossing them as I'm pulling. What I'm looking for is any pieces of cartilage. I'm also looking for any pieces of unrendered fat. Any piece of unrendered fat that may kind of be hanging out there. I just want to pull all that out. You don't want to eat on that. You want every bite to be really good. And so, by pulling out and taking your time and pulling out everything, that's going to help with that eating process, with the mouthfeel and the overall experience. Now, this is the pork butt that I didn't wrap at all. I just let it go all the way unwrapped. And when I was pulling it off the pit, honestly, it was like trying to fall apart in my hands as I was pulling it off before I wrapped it in the butcher paper. Mind you, that butcher paper, I did not add any tallow. I didn't add any fat. That was all the, the juices and things from the pork butt. Clean bone separation. I'm pulling away the meat off of the bark. The bark is amazing on the unwrapped version. It was like, I can't even describe it. It was like, as I'm trying to tear it, it was like, it had a nice, great texture. Now, this one, since I didn't season it before I wrapped it, I'm going to season it right now. I'm adding some raw seasoning to the finished product. I'm going to give that a quick mix, toss it around, and then that is good to go. Now, this is the moment we've been waiting on. We're going to start getting ready to load up our sandwiches. So I got a couple of mounds here. On the right is the version that was wrapped in the foil. On the left, on the cutting board, there is the version that was fully unwrapped. And I'm just adding, some of that Carolina inspired sauce to it. And I'm going to kind of toss it around. Now, if you note, as I'm tossing it, I'm not kind of clumping it and squeezing it together. When I'm tossing it, I like to keep it nice and airy, nice and light, tossing it around so that, air can kind of get into it. And it's not all like super condensed. One of the things that when those guys in Carolina do when they're chopping, they're actually introducing air into the meat. As I'm tossing it with my hands, I'm kind of doing the same thing, but I'm not really chopping it. I'm just kind of tossing and keeping it nice and airy, nice and light, and that's going to help with the overall feel of it. As you can see, the smells were undeniable, so we had little hands. My man, my son Dylan, he couldn't help taking stealing a piece. Now, we're doing sandwiches after all, so here come the buns. I'm going to load them up with a nice mound of the like I said, the unwrapped on the left, the wrapped on the right, hitting them with a little bit more sauce, because why not? That sauce is adding so much flavor. The fat from the pork balanced out with the contrast of the vinegar of that sauce is amazing. I really hope y'all give it a try. Topping them off with some slaw, and then we crown. Man, is not really much more you could say. The left side is the unwrapped, the right side is the wrapped.
And there we have it, y'all. Only thing we have left to do the quick taste test on both of these sandwiches. So we're gonna go with the wrap first. Cheers. Tender. Good taste of smoke in there. That vinegar sauce is really balancing out all of the fat in the pulled pork, but that slaw is adding a nice little contrast with the sweetness. Little bit of crunchiness with the slaw as well. So yeah, this is kind of tasting like, this is tasting like college to me right now. All I need is like some fried hush puppies or something on the side. So let's go and try the one that went unwrapped. Cheers. Pardon me. I don't even have any words, man. That unwrapped one, the bark, you can definitely taste the bark in that. Given how, with the softness of the bread, we got the crunch from the slaw, but the crunchiness and the chewiness of the bark adds a whole nother dimension to it, man. So if I'm doing sandwiches, I'm definitely gonna go unwrapped from here out. Like, I didn't sacrifice any juiciness, any moisture. The texture was there. Like I said, when I was pulling it, it wasn't as juicy because we didn't retain those juices inside the foil like with the wrap one. But like, if you add that Carolina inspired sauce to it, it's going to be a win, man. So I'm rolling with the unwrap for this. But like I said, depending on what your application is, if you want to wrap it, that's definitely going to give you like a ton of flavor. It's going to retain a lot of smoke flavor, ton of juiciness as well. So But this one, winner goes to the unwrap. I'm out, y'all.